No one's style and dress sense is watched quite like Catherine, Princess of Wales.
The statement arrived without warning, cutting through the morning routine of millions who had been following Catherine's health journey with careful hope. Buckingham Palace, in language that carried both clinical precision and devastating finality, confirmed what royal watchers had feared but refused to voice. The Princess of Wales's condition had taken an unexpected turn, and the prognosis was far graver than anyone had been prepared to accept. The statement. At 9:47 this morning, the palace released a brief but crushing statement. The Princess of Wales's medical team has advised that despite aggressive treatment and the princess's extraordinary courage, her condition has progressed beyond what was initially anticipated. Her Royal Highness is receiving ongoing care and remains surrounded by her family. Further updates will be provided as appropriate. The carefully chosen words, progressed beyond what was initially anticipated, carried a weight that royal communications experts immediately recognized as the palace's way of preparing the public for outcomes no one wanted to contemplate. This was not a routine update. This was a warning. BBC interrupted its morning programming within minutes, presenters visibly struggling to maintain professional composure while reading words that felt impossible. Sky News activated its prepared protocols for major royal health crises. And across social media, millions who had been following Catherine's journey since her diagnosis shared the statement with messages of disbelief, support, and devastating recognition that hope was slipping away. The background. Catherine's health crisis began 18 months ago, with what palace officials initially described as a manageable condition, one that required treatment, careful monitoring, and temporary adjustments, but carried a positive and reassuring prognosis. At the time, the emphasis was on stability rather than alarm. The message was clear: this was serious, but controlled. Catherine, true to form, approached the diagnosis with characteristic composure, balancing the demands of her public role with the realities of private medical care. Throughout that early period, she continued to appear at selected engagements, carefully choosing appearances that aligned with her strength and capacity. When she stepped back, the absences were framed as precautionary rather than concerning. Behind the scenes, aides describe a woman determined to retain agency over her life, committed to her responsibilities, but equally resolute about prioritizing her health. It was a delicate equilibrium between royal obligation and personal well-being, one Catherine had long mastered. For much of the past year and a half, the palace maintained a consistent narrative. Statements emphasized that Catherine was responding well to treatment, and that her medical team remained cautiously optimistic. The language was measured, steady, and reassuring. These updates became a quiet rhythm, offering comfort to a public that had grown deeply attached to the Princess of Wales not just as a royal figure, but as a symbol of stability, empathy, and modern leadership. Yet in recent weeks, subtle but unmistakable shifts began to surface. Engagements were canceled with increasing frequency, sometimes at short notice. Planned appearances quietly disappeared from the royal diary without rescheduling. While such adjustments are not uncommon, the pattern began to raise quiet concern among those who closely follow palace movements. Official photographs released during this period told their own muted story. Catherine remained poised and gracious, her smile familiar and warm, but there was a visible weariness that careful lighting, tailored clothing, and practiced composure could not fully conceal. Observers noted that her appearances were shorter, her movements more deliberate, her energy more carefully rationed. None of this was dramatic, but together, the details formed a picture that felt increasingly fragile. Those closest to the family reportedly noticed the change even more acutely. Friends and aides have since acknowledged that Catherine had begun conserving her strength, choosing rest over resilience when possible. This was not retreat, but realism. "She has always pushed herself," one source said quietly. The difference was that she stopped pretending she could do everything. William's behavior also shifted in ways that did not go unnoticed. Always protective of his wife's privacy, he began limiting his own public appearances, stepping back from engagements that would normally be considered essential. Rather than traveling or representing the crown abroad, he remained close to home, prioritizing presence over protocol. Insiders say this was not a matter of preference but urgency, a recognition that time and attention mattered more than optics. Still, the palace continued to emphasize reassurance. The tone of official statements did not change. There was no hint publicly that the situation had worsened. For many, that consistency reinforced hope. It allowed the public to believe that while Catherine's journey was challenging, it remained within expected bounds. That is why this morning's announcement landed with such force. The shift in language, from reassurance to recalibration, felt abrupt, not because it was sudden, but because it punctured a carefully sustained sense of continuity. The acknowledgement that her condition had progressed beyond what was initially anticipated shattered the narrative that had held steady for 18 months. Royal correspondents and medical observers alike note that this was not a failure of transparency, but a reflection of change. The palace, known for its caution, does not abandon established messaging lightly. When it does, it is usually because reality has made the old language no longer honest. In hindsight, the signs now appear clearer: the cancelled engagements, the visible fatigue, William's withdrawal from public life. What once seemed like temporary adjustments now read as quiet preparation. The background to this moment, then, is not one of sudden collapse, but of gradual, deeply human struggle unfolding away from view. This context makes the present moment all the more sobering. It reminds the public that behind every statement is a long road already traveled, and behind today's uncertainty lies 18 months of endurance, hope, and courage that cannot be measured by appearances alone. William's response. Sources close to the Prince of Wales report that William has remained at Catherine's side almost constantly since her medical team delivered a devastating update 3 days ago. An update that, according to those familiar with the situation, fundamentally altered the emotional atmosphere within the household. In a move that underscores the seriousness of the moment, William has cleared his public schedule entirely, delegating urgent constitutional and ceremonial responsibilities to senior royals and trusted aides. Palace officials confirm that he made his position unmistakably clear. Nothing, no engagement, no protocol, no tradition, takes precedence over being present for his wife during this critical time. One palace insider, speaking on condition of anonymity, described William as quietly shattered, but fiercely composed. The source explained that while the prince has long been defined by his sense of duty, this moment has drawn a clear and irreversible line between obligation and love. He is facing the unthinkable, the possible loss of the person who has been his anchor since his 20s, the insider said. Catherine isn't just his wife. She is his partner in every sense, his stabilizer, his sounding board, his emotional home, and the one person who truly understands the weight he carries. Those closest to the family say William has been especially focused on maintaining a sense of normalcy for their 3 children, even as the reality behind closed doors grows heavier. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis have been spoken to in careful, age-appropriate ways. Palace aides acknowledge that the children understand their mother is seriously ill, even if the full weight of that truth has been softened to protect them. Children are far more perceptive than adults often realize, one aide noted quietly. They may not know the details, but they feel the gravity in the room. Schools attended by the children have been discreetly notified and asked to provide additional emotional support as needed, while trusted household staff have been instructed to minimize disruption and preserve daily routines wherever possible. Catherine's parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, have been staying at Adelaide Cottage, offering familiarity and stability during a period defined by uncertainty. Their presence, sources say, has been a comfort not only to the children but also to William himself, who has leaned on them in moments when the emotional burden becomes visibly heavy and unavoidably real. Those who have encountered William in recent days describe a man moving carefully through time, present, attentive, and deeply intentional, yet unmistakably changed by circumstance. He has reportedly taken on many of the routines Catherine once quietly managed, from school drop-offs to evening rituals, determined to preserve continuity where he can. It's his way of protecting them, one source explained. If he can hold the structure of daily life together, then maybe the world won't feel like it's falling apart for the children who depend on him. Behind the scenes, aides say William has also been involved in difficult, deeply personal conversations, ones no future king ever expects to face, let alone so soon. These moments, sources suggest, have reshaped his priorities in ways that titles, training, and preparation never could. Questions once framed around duty and legacy are now grounded firmly in immediacy, care, and emotional presence. Decisions are being made not for optics, but for survival, resilience, and family unity in the face of profound uncertainty. Yet even in the midst of private anguish, William remains acutely aware of Catherine's wishes, dignity, privacy, and above all, shielding their children from unnecessary fear or speculation. He is said to be honoring those wishes with quiet determination, ensuring that what unfolds beyond palace walls does not intrude upon the fragile emotional space inside them. As one palace source put it plainly, this isn't about public image anymore. This is about love, presence, and time, and making every moment count while they still can. The medical reality. While the palace has refrained from releasing specific medical details, citing Catherine's right to privacy even in her role as Princess of Wales, royal medical observers and communications experts have noted that the language used in the most recent statement represents a marked departure from earlier updates. The shift from responding to treatment to progressed beyond what was initially anticipated is widely understood as a deliberate and sobering recalibration of expectations, signaling that the clinical picture has changed in ways that could not have been foreseen or managed within previous projections. Such linguistic adjustments rarely occur without prolonged internal deliberation. In royal communications, consistency is prized, and departures from established phrasing are made only when existing language no longer reflects reality. For many observers, the altered wording suggests that earlier optimism, carefully framed though it was, has given way to a more complex and uncertain outlook. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a medical consultant with extensive experience advising on high-profile health communications, though with no direct knowledge of Catherine's case, emphasized the significance of this shift. The palace does not use language casually, she explained. Every word is reviewed, debated, and selected with extreme care. When you see terms like progressed beyond anticipated, it suggests that the illness has not followed the hoped-for course, despite intervention. According to Dr. Mitchell, this type of wording is often chosen not to alarm the public abruptly, but to prepare it gradually. She explained that such phrasing can indicate several possibilities, including resistance to treatment, unforeseen complications, or a condition that has advanced more aggressively than predicted. What matters most is not speculation about diagnosis, she stressed, but the clear signal that this is no longer a routine or cautiously optimistic update. This is crisis communication, designed to slowly align public understanding with a more serious and less predictable reality. Equally notable is the statement's emphasis on Catherine being surrounded by her family. In royal health communications, this phrase carries meaning that extends well beyond sentiment or reassurance. Historically, similar wording has been used when the focus of care begins to broaden, from purely aggressive medical intervention toward comfort, presence, and the preservation of meaningful time. It does not automatically indicate the worst outcome, Dr. Mitchell cautioned, but it strongly suggests that priorities have changed and that emotional well-being has become as important as clinical measures. Palace aides have confirmed that Catherine's medical team remains fully engaged, with no indication that care has been withdrawn or reduced. Treatment continues, and specialists remain closely involved. However, insiders say the emotional tone within the household has become notably more reflective. Decisions are reportedly being made with heightened sensitivity to quality of life, dignity, and the psychological needs of both Catherine and her family. There is a feeling of intentionality now, one source said quietly. Moments are being treated as precious. Nothing is assumed, nothing is postponed. The palace's decision to limit the frequency and depth of medical updates has drawn a mix of understanding and concern from the public. Some have expressed anxiety over the lack of detail, while others have welcomed the restraint. Experts argue that this approach is neither evasive nor dismissive, but strategic and humane. Oversharing would invite speculation, misinformation, and intrusive commentary, Dr. Mitchell explained. The palace is attempting to balance transparency with compassion and clarity with protection, not just for Catherine but for her children as well. Royal historians note that in moments of genuine medical crisis, silence often communicates more truth than constant explanation. Unlike political or ceremonial announcements, health updates are guided not by obligation or expectation but by ethics. The measured cadence of recent statements reflects an institution moving carefully, acutely aware that every word carries emotional weight for millions and can shape public perception in irreversible ways. What remains unmistakably clear is that the situation is serious, evolving, and emotionally taxing for everyone involved. The absence of detailed information, paradoxically, speaks volumes. In royal terms, silence is rarely accidental. It is often the most honest acknowledgement that events are unfolding beyond prediction, beyond reassurance, and beyond anyone's full control. Public reaction. Outside Kensington Palace, the public response has been immediate, visible, and deeply emotional. Floral tributes have begun to line the gates, bouquets of lilies, roses, and wildflowers, alongside handwritten notes bearing messages of hope, gratitude, and quiet grief. Some cards are carefully sealed, others are folded hastily, written in ink that is blurred from tears or rain. Many who have come to leave flowers speak not as royal watchers or commentators, but as people who feel they have grown alongside Catherine over the years, witnessing her journey from a young woman entering public life to a mother, advocate, and future queen. An elderly woman who placed a small bouquet of white roses paused before leaving, standing silently for several moments before wiping away tears. "She's been such a light," she said softly. "Always smiling, always composed. Even when life must have been hard behind the scenes, she made it look effortless, but you could tell it wasn't. It doesn't feel fair. Not for her. Not for her children." Nearby, a young mother gently explained to her daughter why people were leaving flowers, describing Catherine simply as someone very kind who is unwell. Across social media platforms, messages of support have surged with striking speed and consistency. The hashtag number Prayers for Catherine has trended globally, with people sharing memories of her early days as a university student, her steady transition into royal life, and her work championing early childhood development and mental health awareness. Many posts reflect a deeply personal connection, stories of how her openness around motherhood, emotional balance, and quiet resilience resonated far beyond palace walls and into ordinary homes. Teachers, healthcare workers, and parents have shared how Catherine's advocacy made them feel seen and valued. "She spoke about children as people, not statistics," one post read. "That mattered." Others recalled her calm presence during national moments of grief, noting how often she chose listening over speaking and empathy over performance. In an online space often defined by outrage and division, the overwhelming tone has been one of restraint and collective care. What stands out most in the public response is its measured nature, respectful, protective, and notably free of speculation. There is little of the sensationalism that often accompanies royal news. Instead, there is a collective pause, as though the public instinctively understands the fragility of the moment and the boundaries that should not be crossed. "This feels different," one widely shared comment read. "This isn't about monarchy or titles. It's about a woman, a mother, and a family we've watched grow." Political figures from across the spectrum have issued statements of support, carefully avoiding commentary and focusing instead on compassion. Former Prime Minister Gordon Brown described Catherine as a remarkable woman who has brought warmth, dedication, and sincerity to public life. He added that the nation stands united in hope, prayer, and compassion for her and her family. Current leaders echoed similar sentiments, emphasizing privacy, respect, and solidarity. International figures and organizations Catherine has supported over the years have also spoken out. Charities focused on early childhood development, mental health, and family well-being released statements highlighting her hands-on involvement and long-term commitment. Many noted that her impact was often felt most in private meetings and quiet advocacy, rather than headline moments. "She listened," one charity representative said, "and that changed how institutions behaved." For many members of the public, this moment has subtly reframed Catherine's public image. She is no longer viewed primarily as a symbol of continuity or a fixture of ceremony, but as a human being navigating an unimaginable challenge. The crown, for now, feels distant. What remains in focus is her humanity. As the flowers continue to gather and messages continue to pour in, one truth becomes increasingly clear. Catherine is not facing this moment alone. She is surrounded not only by her family, but by a public that, for once, is watching not with expectation, judgment, or demand, but with patience, compassion, and empathy. What comes next? The palace has indicated that further updates will be provided as appropriate, language that signals a deliberate absence of any fixed timeline for additional information. For observers familiar with royal communications, this phrasing is significant. It suggests that future statements will be guided not by public expectation or media cycles, but by Catherine's condition and, above all, her personal wishes. In serious health situations, royal protocol grants the family wide latitude to step back from regular disclosures, and palace officials have been clear that Catherine's right to privacy will be respected absolutely. Behind the scenes, this means the palace is operating in a more fluid, responsive mode than usual. Communications staff are reportedly on standby rather than on schedule, prepared to issue updates only if and when circumstances materially change. There is no appetite for routine briefings, one source familiar with palace operations said. The focus is not on managing headlines, but on protecting a family at an incredibly vulnerable time. Every potential statement is weighed for tone, timing, and necessity. Language is scrutinized for precision because in moments like these, every word carries weight, emotionally for the family and symbolically for the public. William's office has canceled all upcoming engagements indefinitely, with a spokesperson confirming that the prince's priority is his family, and all other matters are secondary. While royal diaries are often adjusted due to illness or unforeseen events, the decision to cancel duties without a defined endpoint is highly unusual. It reflects both the gravity of the situation and William's determination to remove any competing demands on his time and attention. Constitutional responsibilities are being redistributed quietly, without public emphasis, in order to minimize disruption while allowing William complete focus on Catherine and their children. Senior palace aides stress that this pause should not be interpreted as a withdrawal, but as a necessity. There are moments when the institution steps back so the people within it can step forward for each other, one aide said. This is one of those moments. For now, ceremonial appearances, long-term planning discussions, and non-urgent initiatives linked to the Prince of Wales have been set aside. The palace is choosing continuity of care and family presence over public spectacle, acknowledging that leadership sometimes requires personal sacrifice. King Charles, who has faced his own health challenges in recent years, issued a brief but deeply personal statement. Catherine has been a beloved daughter-in-law and a dedicated member of our family. Our thoughts and prayers are with her, William, and the children. We ask that their privacy be respected during this profoundly difficult time. The message, though concise, carried emotional weight, reflecting both familial concern and an implicit understanding of the public attention surrounding the situation. For many observers, the king's words serve as a quiet reinforcement of family boundaries, signaling that while public empathy is welcomed, the family's need for private space is paramount. Royal historians note that such statements are carefully calibrated, offering reassurance without intrusion. The king's words are meant to draw a boundary, one commentator observed. They acknowledge the public's concern while making it clear that this is, first and foremost, a family matter. These carefully crafted messages reflect decades of institutional experience, blending tradition, discretion, and public expectation in moments that are intensely personal yet inevitably public. In practical terms, the coming days and weeks are likely to remain quiet. Public appearances by senior royals may continue selectively, but without reference to Catherine unless explicitly authorized. Charities and organizations associated with her patronages have been advised to proceed sensitively, avoiding any actions that could be perceived as pressuring the palace for updates. Observers expect a measured cadence of communication, marked by intervals of silence that are as deliberate as the statements themselves. For the public, what comes next may feel uncertain and emotionally unresolved. There may be long stretches without news, followed by carefully worded statements offering little detail. Yet experts emphasize that this silence is intentional, not dismissive. In moments like this, one former palace communications advisor said, "The absence of information is often a form of care. What remains constant is the central priority: Catherine's well-being, her dignity, and the protection of her family." Whatever the medical outcome, the palace has made clear that decisions will be guided by compassion rather than protocol, and by humanity rather than expectation. In that sense, what comes next is not a schedule or a statement, but time, presence, and the quiet resolve to face whatever lies ahead together, honoring both family and the dignity of the person at the heart of it, a family's private crisis. Behind the palace gates, far from cameras, headlines, and official statements, a family is confronting the kind of crisis that status, title, and ceremony offer no protection against. In the quiet spaces of Adelaide Cottage, the trappings of royalty fall away, leaving what truly matters: a husband, a wife, and 3 children, navigating fear, love, and uncertainty together. This is not a constitutional moment or a public test of monarchy. It is an intensely private reckoning, a confrontation with vulnerability and loss that no protocol can mitigate. For William, the situation carries a uniquely painful weight, shaped by his own history. He lost his mother, Princess Diana, at the age of 12, a trauma that left an indelible mark on his inner life and profoundly influenced the parent and partner he vowed to become. Those close to him have long said that building a stable, emotionally present family was not simply a hope, but a quiet promise, a commitment to ensure that the children in his care would never feel the isolation and fear he once endured. Now, he faces the possibility that his own children could experience a loss he has spent his adult life striving to protect them from. Sources describe William as deeply attentive, moving through each day with deliberate care and measured presence. He is present not only in body but in spirit, listening, reassuring, absorbing fear, so that his children do not have to carry it alone. He knows exactly what it feels like to be young and frightened by the unknown, one person close to the family said, and that knowledge makes this even harder. But it also makes him fiercely protective. Every gesture, every choice, is rooted in shielding them. Catherine, who has spent the past 18 months battling her illness with resilience those close to her describe as extraordinary, is now surrounded by the people she loves most. Friends and aides say she has faced each stage of her treatment with quiet courage, often more concerned about the emotional well-being of her family than her own condition. Even now, her focus remains on reassurance, ensuring her children feel loved, safe, and held, even as her own strength is tested. She continues to parent even while she is sick, a source said. Her love is both a comfort and an anchor. Those caring for Catherine confirm that she is receiving the full measure of modern medical support, alongside the steady, unbroken presence of family. There is no sense of abandonment or isolation, only closeness, intention, and care. This is about comfort as much as medicine now, one aide said gently. It's about being together, about presence, about shared moments that matter more than ever. For the children, George at 11, Charlotte at 9, and Louis at 6, the experience is unfolding in ways no child should have to navigate. They are old enough to sense seriousness, to notice the changed rhythms of daily life, the hushed conversations, the adults who linger a little longer before leaving the room. Yet they are young enough that language often fails to fully contain what they are feeling, leaving them reliant on the unspoken cues of love, routine, and protection. Palace aides and family members are said to be prioritizing honesty tempered with gentleness. Questions are answered carefully but never overwhelmed with detail. Fears are acknowledged but not amplified. Children don't need certainty. A family expert familiar with royal protocols explained, they need safety, consistency, and permission to feel whatever they feel, and adults who can absorb what is unbearable for them. There are still ordinary moments, school routines, bedtime stories, shared meals, maintained as carefully as ever. These moments serve as anchors of normalcy, reminding the children that love does not disappear in crisis, that laughter is still allowed, and that life continues even when it feels fragile. For the wider public, Catherine may appear as a symbol of grace, continuity, or national identity. Inside their home, however, she is simply Mum. And William is not the Prince of Wales, but a husband doing everything within his power to hold his family together through the hardest chapter they have ever faced. Every small act, carrying plates, reading stories, listening, becomes an expression of care, devotion, and quiet heroism. This is the reality behind the statements, the pauses, and the silences. A family moving forward one day at a time, leaning on love when certainty is unavailable, and learning, in the most painful way imaginable, that even royalty must meet suffering as all families do, together, quietly, and without guarantees. In those private moments, titles are irrelevant, and the universal truths of fear, hope, and devotion reign supreme. The coming days may bring hope few dare voice, or heartbreak a nation will quietly share. Palace updates will be scrutinized, experts consulted, and millions who feel they know Catherine through years of grace will wait, hope, and pray. Wherever you are watching from, your compassion matters. Thank you for respecting this family's privacy while holding them in your thoughts, prayers, and collective hope during this profoundly difficult moment together.